Thanks for joining me for another edition of Grew with Portia. I'm your host, Portia Booker, and yes, this is my real name. Grew with Portia targets those who are curious, eager, and hungry for new information that can aid in their personal and professional development. Malcolm X once said, "Education is the passport to the future, but tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." Never stop learning. Be a sponge for the rest of your life. Before I jump into my topic for today, I want to introduce my guest. Welcome, Dr. Camila Williams. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to call you Miss Booker. Thank you, Miss Booker.
I appreciate it. It's funny, when people call me Miss Booker sometimes, I start looking around like a crazy person, like, who is that? And it makes me think of my grandma and my dad. So I'm like, only she was called Miss Booker. Like, who is that? And I'm like, oh, it is me. Ignore me. I'm like a kid. Sometimes I have squirrel attention span, but it's all good. So during the month of April, buds come into full bloom, brightening our days, and National Month of Hope also lends a hand in lifting our spirits. Bringing hope to someone can take many forms, being a positive role model in the life of a child, or lift the spirits of a friend suffering from a medical issue, or even volunteer at a local homeless shelter. We are each able to bring a ray of hope in our own ways by contributing wisdom, time, kindness, and when possible, donate to charities that make the impossible possible. So Dr. Williams, we've got COVID here, and I know a lot of people, they're struggling, not just financially, mentally, spiritually, all types. How can we continue to kind of like spread hope amongst people considering this kind of like crazy and time of uncertainty?
So that's interesting because a lot of the thoughts that I have surrounding education talks about the connectedness. And so when you talk about hope, the fact that we're connected, that allows us to be able to lean on others. So for example, although we are going through trying times, if we're able to reach out to others, similar to how able to reach out to one another earlier this week, you will find that there are so many different options that we have when we're in times of trouble. So for example, as we're going through this, you may receive emails, phone calls about different resources that are out there. And so I would just encourage us to remain connected, that we're not alone. And that allows us to see the brighter side of things. Although we've never gone through anything like this in our lifetime, we can be assured that maybe there are others where we can read some of their journal entries from different elements. I know my daughter read something from one of the journal entries from the 1700s through yellow fever. There are a variety of things that can bring hope to us as we go through this. That we're not alone, and I would say that would be one of the elements.
Well, and I think too, the beauty of all this is that social media keeps us connected as well.
Yes.
Technology being the way it is now, I mean, you can talk to people through video chat, people who are on Snapchat all the time, share pictures, share little video snippets. Can't forget about TikTok, all those random little videos people share all day. So, I mean, there's ways to still be connected even remotely.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not alone in this. Like we may be doing social distancing physically, but that does not impact the fact that we can be together with the social emotional from simply, if you don't have all the technology features, simply talking to one another and staying connected through some forms, whether it's like you said, Zoom, things of that nature.
And that's what I think really makes me happy, because I'm a social butterfly. And I'm not going to lie, this social distancing is killing me because I'm a world traveler. I love going on road trips. I'm a hugger. I love giving people hugs. I have literally coined my hug the Portia hug, the owner of the Portia hug. I mean, so it's killing me that the only people I can hug is the people in my household, my doggy, my crazy mother, and my brother. So, my hugs are limited, but it's okay. I'm sure that, once this blows over, people will probably be lining up outside my door wanting a hug instead of a vaccine, so.
Yeah.
So we'll make do. I mean, Dr. Williams, what's the first thing you want to do once they've lifted the social distancing ban?
Actually, one of the first things that I want to do, and this is not just because of this, but this is because this is truly a passion. I really miss my kids. I've been in the field of education for over 20, well, it'll be going on 21 years.
Wow.
And that is half of my life. And with that being stated, I'm able to stay connected with quite a few of my children, like through FaceTime and things of that nature. But I really just want to have a cookout.
I hear that. Well, I better get an invitation.
And it's funny because I've already been talking to, it's a group of us that work together. And I already have our grill person. He's going to be on the grill, one of the teachers. And we have our entertainment committee. We're going to do a little decorating. We're really going to have fun. So I just want to just fellowship, basically.
I hear that.
Yeah, they're not anything super fancy. I'm not trying to jump out and, I just want to do something very simple. And I think that being in this epidemic, I would say that I truly appreciate the small things.
Yes.
Nothing big, the small things.
I agree. I mean, we take so much for granted in life. And now, people would complain, oh, I hate going to the movies because people have their cell phones out. But now, nobody can even go to the movies. You have to have your own movies at home.
Yeah.
So, it teaches you to appreciate a lot of stuff, the small things, and even things that you see daily that you finally can take notice of. I mean, for example, people who hate their jobs. It's like, be happy you still got a job today.
Yes. And that, continuously being grateful, about what you do have. So for some of us, for some people, you may be going through different things, but like, for example, with family, I know my family, we're very connected. And that's one of the things that, like, I tell my own students, like, we need to be thankful for the things that we have. We may not have all of the fancy technology that some people have. And I'm speaking of, like, some people may not have a laptop, but you may have a phone, So just being grateful for the things that you do have, having food, having shelter. Mm-hmm. So those things become super important in a time like this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And people don't think about that until you're pretty much told, no, you can't do something, So for me, once this is all over with, I'm going back to my road trips. I'm excited because I planned on going to Canada this summer anyway. So, and then just visiting my friends, going over their house, laughing at my crazy stories of things that happen in the everyday life of Portia. Yeah. Catching up with them, hearing how their lives are going, and just being in the atmosphere of other company,
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I love my family and my little doggy here, but sometimes I'm thinking, I need a break from y'all. I'm seeing the same faces every day. I'm a prisoner here. So that's just
You're not in prison.
I know. I'm confined behind the walls of my home where I'm seeing the same people every day, just different outfits and maybe different food that's being cooked. But other than that, I'm not complaining. And honestly, you know what? I'm taking advantage of a lot of this quarantine time because it's taught me to slow down in life. Take every day as a gift. I take every day to learn something new. Like, I set aside an hour a day to either listen to an audiobook, a podcast, take some notes on something. I mean, so I'm taking advantage of it because during my normal routine, we're always on the go.
Yes. And that's what I was going to say. Like, one of the things that I read with my daughter, it was actually an article, and it talked about, is it okay to be bored? And actually, is it truly being bored? And one of the things that we were reading was that it allows you to be creative. Mm-hmm. I know my daughter has been crocheting, she's been sewing, and she's 9 years old. So having that opportunity to, and we'll talk further about that, incorporated like within their schedule to truly be creative and and think of things that maybe you would not have normally thought of during.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good thing you bring that up, because I would have never thought about the word bored. Are we truly really bored? I mean, is there a such thing as boredom, as long as you take advantage of the time?
Right. And so when you listen to what the kids are saying, they're saying that they're bored. Those are the words that they're utilizing. But and that's going to be part of where I feel our challenge is as a community, is really delving into what you just stated. Like, are you really bored? Or helping to channel their energy and guide them into different aspects that maybe they really didn't think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for your daughter being 9 and wanting to crochet and things, I mean, hey, probably by the time she's maybe 10, she can start, crocheting scarves during the wintertime for kids,
Yes.
gloves and mittens, and hey, have her a little side hustle, start saving for college early.
Right. And she actually even spoke of like starting a business. Like, so that's something that she hadn't spoken of before. And so I was like, oh, I really like this.
Wow. Hey, I hear that. I applaud that. I mean, start them early. And I think that's the other thing that we should take advantage of now, is getting our kids to think in a business mindset as well.
Exactly.
Since school's going to be out in 2 to 3 weeks, I mean, maybe even less than that.
Well, yeah, we still have like about 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, hey, occupy their time. Get them thinking about other things.
There's a lot of time. A lot of time to learn.
Yeah, I think there's always time to learn. It's just, once again, making time, and are you really bored?
Yeah.
See, I guess I'm a student for life, is what I call myself. I always love learning something new. I try to take advantage of that every day. Even if it's just the smallest thing of learning how to tie a bow tie. I mean, you never know where that could lead you. You hear stories of people who like start playing piano at the age of 5, and then they stop by the time they're like, an adult. But then maybe they're at an airport and everybody's grumpy because their flight's delayed, and they just start playing the piano to keep everybody calm.
Yeah.
You
never know.
Yeah, I mean, take advantage. That's my thing right now. Is COVID is really giving me a lot of time to think, a lot of creativity boost, per se, and just being around my family. Because that's the other thing too. We're always busy, always going to go. We don't get time for our families because, I have to work overtime. I have to finish this project. I have to finish that. I have to travel out of town. It's like there's so much rustle and bustle that you don't even know what day it is half the time.
Well, now you have an opportunity now to truly take advantage. Truly.
Yeah. And see, for me, since I'm working remote, sometimes I have to think, wait a minute, what is today?
and that's funny that you say that, because I always thought, I was like, why is it like when I speak to like my grandmother, like she's like, I don't know what day it is. At first I thought that was just because she was 89. But now, if you're not in the midst of that, it doesn't matter what age you are, you won't know.
Ain't that the truth?
You won't know.
Yeah, that's the issue I'm having, because every day looks the same. So I have to remind myself, when Saturday rolls around, you don't have to get up at 4:30. You can sleep in until 6 because you don't have to start work.
Yes.
So, and even when I go out of the house during the week, I have to remember, like, today is Wednesday. Today is Thursday, because the businesses are open. The post office is open. So, it goes back to like just so much time on our hands. We get wrapped up,
Right.
It's like the analogy I use for summer. I tell people that summer is just one long day with several naps. think about it. It is.
Well, I guess for me, because I do work I work like all of June. So like July when I'm able, like I'm just enjoying myself. So it moves so quickly. So I don't look at it as like that. I'm like enjoying, like it doesn't run together for me, I
guess. I feel that. I feel that. Dr. Williams, what sparked your interest in pursuing a career in education?
Actually, I must say that I had some very great role models in my life, particularly my grandparents. Both of my grandparents were in the field of education, as well as my mom. And in particular, my grandfather, his name was Benjamin Williams. He just was so connected with his students and seeing their interaction together. He was not in their life just during school. He was in their life for the long haul. There's this phrase that they would always say is that people can be in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And he had students that were in his life for a lifetime. He actually, right before he passed, he was in the hospital, and one of his students was his physician. And I personally wanted to have that same type of relationship, being connected. And that is, I would say, the foundation of why I went into education.
And I'm glad you said role models, because I think right now in our society today, a lot of people, especially people of color, don't have enough role models to give them that influence, that drive. I mean, I'm the same boat as you. You and my mom both worked together for quite a bit of time. And my mom is probably one of my biggest role models, and my great grandma as well, because they kept their foot up my butt my whole life, making sure that I didn't give up, making sure that I worked hard for everything I got. And I'm very grateful to have had both of them in my life.
Yes. I would say that has been the foundation of my life. Now, I had other role models, and I still currently do, like my godmom, and I have my pastors. But I would say in terms of the field of education, definitely my grandparents and my mom.
Excellent. Same with me. Even though I didn't pursue anything in the education field, still what I do as, doing podcasting and radio hosting, it gives me that opportunity to teach, because I'm doing it kind of like from a third person objective point of view. Like I'm interviewing this person, but also serving the community by giving them something to think about, something to do, some way to change their life, even if it's just by one little word of hearing hello. I mean, the little things, right?
Yes.
So, Dr. Williams, you've worked in many different schools throughout your career. Like you said, you've been in the education field for more than 20-something years. So, despite all the challenges that come from being in the education field, why do you continue to teach or do what you do?
There is a African proverb, and it is, I am because we are. And I'm telling you, that has driven me like my whole career. There is a sense of connectedness. And a lot of times I know, and you know this because you're in this field, and I don't know it as much. I'm not truly entwined with all of social media because I choose not to be, but that when you begin to see what's going on in our communities, you see that there are a lot of people that are narcissistic. There's a lot of focus on self, and you have to have people that are willing to give and not just simply focusing on themselves. And I had that in my own life. I spoke of like my pastors and like my godparents. So my family was involved in my life, but I also had people that gave to me. And I feel like that's super essential in my life, to give back. And so I don't want to go into another field. I truly, truly love this. I laugh and I chuckle. Your mom, we used to do this as well. Like that first day of school, like I would be nervous. And I still am, like all of the time, like every year that rolls on, just really desiring to see like what's to come in that year and learning more about my kids. I truly feel that it's important to be connected and to give back.
Absolutely. That's excellent. I love that African proverb because I haven't heard it in a long time, but I
Yeah.
believe you do. I mean, because, and I'm not against you being on social media because there's a lot of trash on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Don't get me wrong, because I get sick of it too. But with me being in the age of social media, I tailor it to what I want people to see. And I try to spread positivity all the time.
Yes.
All
Well,
the time.
that's good to hear. I mean, like I said, I just know that there's a lot that is, even with looking at the young people that I've dealt with along the years, they take a lot of like their influence from those platforms. And I didn't grow up with that. And so it's different for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, social media is not for everybody. Like I said, some people, and you hit the nail on the head, people being narcissistic. And social media tailors to that a lot for people.
Yeah. Yes.
Because some people make it, oh, it's all about me. I don't care about nobody else. It's all about me. So I get it. But like I said, I try to only spread positivity because that's what I like to do. Because there's a lot of negative in the world, but it doesn't all have to be, right?
That's true. That's true.
So let's kind of like jump into our topic here, Dr. Williams. So, due to COVID, all classes have been moved to online instruction. And, there's some parents who are not used to this, and even the kids, because they're used to having a set learning environment. So kind of what's the best way for parents to help their children with this transition?
So one of the things that I think is just essential, not just during COVID, I would say just in general, is communication. So having conversations like with the children. Each child thinks differently, right? So you won't know exactly how they're feeling until you have a conversation. And this is actually something that I know I do like all the time, not only with my daughter, but with my kids, is talking to them about, the information that they've heard, as well as like how they're feeling. After having like that conversation with them, I would say the most essential element is to assure that they have a routine. One of the things that I've been telling my daughter, telling my kids in my school is that this is not a vacation. There's there's like this whole thought process and conversation amongst young people that they're kind of like free to kind of like do what they want to do. And that is not the case. So for me, and I'm not just saying this for the children, it's also for me as well. I still wake up at my normal time. I feel that you must have a routine. If you do not have a routine throughout this, you're going to get yourself into a habit that would be hard to break. And so as we go further, like in our conversation, I can talk more about like what a sample routine would be. And of course, age is going to play a part in this. When you're with younger kids, of course, you would not have like 4 hours of like educational opportunities. You would break that up for them. You definitely, though, want to have like a time in which they wake up, eat breakfast, go throughout the day and go to bed. They should not be a child that is like 6, 7 years old should not be going to bed at midnight. Because when we do go back to school, it will be very hard for them to come back to a routine.
Absolutely, I agree. And, let's jump into that. Parents who have younger children, kids that are in 5th grade and below, kind of give them a sample routine, Dr. Williams, like from the time they wake up to even, little breaks in between.
Okay, so let's say we start off, first we may want to wake up between, 8 to 8:30-ish, which would give us some time to, do our routine from washing our face, getting into, let's say, I'm just saying like some leisure wear, eating breakfast. So prepping our day, right? By 9 o'clock, I would say that we need to do some type of morning physical activity, whether it's, doing a morning walk, doing some level of yoga, deep breathing, really like stimulating the brain. From then, I would say we need to have like some academic time. And with younger kids, depending on that age group, they should be able to do anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour where there's no electronics and they're doing some type of, whether or not it's journaling, reading a book. If in your prospective district, you may have work, whether it's online or offline. And so online may be Prodigy or Study Island or things of that nature to, and I know, for example, in Cleveland, we do have packets for the children. So maybe that offline work, doing some writing activities and things of reading comprehension, math, for about, let's say that 10 to 11. From 11 to 12, I would say that it's important to have some level of creativity. So whether or not they're doing some level of craft, music, cooking, maybe they're doing some Legos, doing some type of building, puzzles. It's just important to get their creativity going. Our children at this age, they are very creative, and it's a super essential for them to do some type of creative element. If you don't have a lot of crafts, you can do a lot with paper and pencil, marker, crayons, where it would allow the children to do some of that. Then from there, I would say around noon, doing some level of lunch. After lunch, at around 12:30-ish, 12:45, doing some level of chore. This is also part of creativity, making sure washing dishes or putting up the dishes or vacuuming, dusting, teaching the children some level of responsibility. And then from so that's like 12:30 to 1 to, let's say 2, maybe some level of quiet time, where for the younger kids, they may, particularly like kindergarten, they may do like some level of nap. The younger kids doing some level of reading again, or listening to reading. Maybe the children can, I know our Cleveland, our libraries, they have read alouds that the children can get on for free. Then going back to academic time for another chunk of time. Now, as you get older, that academic time may extend longer than an hour. They definitely can go longer. And then if the children are able to go outside after that academic time, it would be nice to have some level of fresh air. That's truly good for the brain. Then moving into dinner from, let's say, like a 5 to 6. You notice there is no, we're not having any conversation about tablet time, iPad time. This whole day is free of that time. I would not recommend that until after dinner. And so the recommendation typically is like an hour of that time where they're doing some level of gaming or things of that nature, and then preparing for bed. So truly limiting that amount of time in which they're on their electronic devices.
You hit on a lot of good points, Dr. Williams, especially when you talked about screen time, because you figure a lot of, with the classes being remote and, parents are spending time with their kids on the computer, it gives kids that temptation of wanting to browse on YouTube or whatever other websites that they want. So yeah. I think that's a good point to make.
So when children are doing like Zoom and things of that nature, that's part of their academic time. So I'm not speaking about that part. I'm speaking about free time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Video games, tablet, movies, that type of thing.
Yeah. TikTok.
Right. I'm glad that you hit on that. Another key thing, 2 things. Creativity. I think in the schools today, it seems that they've taken a lot of the creative classes out, like the music and art. And so I'm glad that you hit on that.
Yes. So I know, like, for example, in my district, we actually do have art, music, gym. And depending on your school, you can have foreign language, things of that nature. So we have that incorporated in our day.
And that's amazing because kids, like you said, they are creative. And
Yes.
then, the ones that don't learn the traditional read a book and understand it, like me, I'm somebody who has to do something in order to understand it. So for them, it still caters to their learning style as well.
Yes.
And also teaching them responsibility with the chores. I don't know if a
Yes.
lot of people thought about that.
Yes. I feel that that is one of the things that just, we teach like those character, we try to teach character traits in to be respectful, to be responsible, things of that nature within school, embedded within school. So like, for example, during like our lunchtime, children are responsible for making sure that they clean their area. Those things, you can still teach those things within while they're at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that, me and you are having this conversation, because I feel that a lot of parents are kind of struggling right now since, they've officially said that school and classes will be remote to the end of the academic year.
Yes. And I feel that it is important, going back to that connectedness, right? So it's important for us to connect with one another. So if you are struggling, you are not alone. You're not alone. So we can talk about what are some things specifically that they may be struggling with. So if you have like a network, you can have conversations about those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So another thing that some of my friends have been complaining about is getting their kids to finish their work during the day. So, Dr. Williams, what tips or strategies would you recommend to these parents to help get their kids' work done?
So I want to loop back to the schedule. And the reason why I want to loop back to the schedule, because this is something that goes hand in hand in the educational field. It is super essential to follow the schedule, to be consistent. When you're consistent with a schedule, and when I say consistent, meaning you must at least get them following the schedule, and don't deviate from that if possible, for giving yourself at least a week to try to like get them accustomed to what the schedule is. I would also say that it's important to talk to your kids, right? And to see what the barriers are. So for example, if sometimes children, and this is whether or not you are identified as having if you're identified as having a specific need, or if you do not have a special need. So for example, if they are struggling with science, they may feel like they cannot do it, so they don't want to do it. So if that's a barrier, then working with them to work past the barriers. So I would say having conversations with them to determine what are their barriers. Why do they not want to do the work? Because I know within some of the different districts, children may be going through different content that is new for them. And so that's where you want to, if you're uncomfortable with, teaching that content, reaching out to the teachers to help with that new content. I know many teachers have like office hours, they're doing lessons online. And so I would say first having like that conversation with the students, with their children, to figure out why they don't want to do the work. And number two, making sure they have that schedule. That schedule is going to help the parents in the long run as well.
Absolutely. I agree. That's a great point to make, because that routine is essential. That way kids can learn it continuously, develop on their skills and be more focused.
I would also want to add, I know that we do this in school as well, is that you may have like some type of system in which if they get, let's say, they stay on task and they do, let's say, their academic time, their chores, that then they may earn like 10 more minutes of free time. So it doesn't necessarily have to be where you're giving them something special, but maybe they earn some additional time where maybe you and you all may play Uno together, things of that nature. So working up to a reward.
And that's a good point that you make, because I believe my mom had gave that same advice to one of my friends, like use the reward system as well to
Yes.
help, with getting work done. And,
Yes.
Dr. Williams, some, students struggle with multiple subjects, like I was somebody who hated math to the T, but I love algebra. I can mess some algebra up now, but
Yeah.
when I was learning it, no. So Dr. Williams, is there like some good online websites that, parents can visit for their kids, to give them a better understanding of certain like aspects of their learning?
Yes. So that would also make learning accessible and in a fun way. So one of them is Wide Open School. And this has a plethora of resources. When you go on, you will see where they have hyperlinks that will connect you to just hundreds of resources. I would say that's one of the best resources that I've seen. Your students or your children, would be able to take, online field trips, and Scholastic is on there as well. I would say that is another resource that is just truly awesome. They're offering Learn at Home, and this is free for all families, where you can go on, and there are a variety of resources that connect disciplines as well. So it's not just reading, it's reading, math, science, social studies. It's been so fun. I know that my daughter and we read one of the articles that talked about the American Revolution. And then from there, we took a virtual field trip through the American Revolution Museum in Philadelphia. Just truly, truly awesome. Another resource is CW43, WUAB teachers, and this is from 9 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. Teachers are actually teaching lessons on there for children. We have Prodigy, Reading Aid, ReadWorks. There are just so many different resources, and I know, Portia, you're going to offer some of these links online, where parents will be able to click directly on there. But these are just a few that I actually use as an educator that I feel truly have some awesome experiences for our children.
Well, thank you, Dr. Williams. Yeah, definitely I will put them online. That way people can, people need help out here. We gotta continue to stay connected, even though we're socially distant. Help. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and also every child's teacher should be accessible. There actually is a House Bill 197 in the state of Ohio, where teachers are required to engage the children. So you should be able to reach out to your child's teacher via email or whatever, Classroom Dojo, where you should be able to ask questions, and questions would be answered, as well as reach out to receive resources.
Absolutely. I agree. That's good information to know, Dr. Williams. I mean, because people, I think some people also, they don't want to bombard the teacher because, everybody's remote, ever many students, parents are emailing them every day, 24/7,
Well, you're not bombarding educators. We are here to help.
That's good to hear. Good to hear, Dr. Williams. I appreciate that. So, Dr. Williams, let's kind of jump away from like our younger students to our 9th and 12th graders.
Yes.
How can you get them to, continue to focus on, themselves and getting their work done without being in a physical classroom environment?
So the good thing about the older children is that when you have a conversation with them, you can have a conversation with them and discuss how this can impact their future. So for example, many of the older students, they are well aware that if they are not engaged with their teachers, with the work that is going on, that what that potential would mean for their future. So for example, going back to that House Bill 197, there's an element that speaks to pass fail. So if children are engaged, reasonably engaged with their educators as they're going through their process, there's a pass portion. And if they are not reasonably engaged, there's a fail portion. And so I think that is going to be important. And I thank you for your platform to pass this message to not only the students, but their parents, that they must be engaged. I know many of our high schools already have like online platforms already. So it pretty much makes it an easy transition to go through this. And so I'll use, for example, at Mentum, for example, is a online platform that is utilized. We also have, going back to, I'm trying to think of Scholastic, all of these elements, many of the teachers are already utilizing them. And so it's just an easy transition for children to go through and be engaged. Teachers are able to check and give feedback. So that's another portion that I think is essential when you're speaking about not bombarding the educators. Educators are also required to provide feedback. So I would just, one of the biggest things is to get out the word that, number one, you can reach out to your teachers. Number two, the importance of engaging, because if you do not engage, how that may impact your overall standing as a high schooler.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you made that, point again, that educators are there to help. They're there to, ensure that your kid is successful, even though we're not physically in the classroom. They're still available, there for your kids. And that's great to hear. For our 11th graders, Dr. Williams, who, they'll be seniors in this fall, it's crazy, right? That even though it seems like time has slowed down, it hasn't, it's still moving. What should, they be doing prior to this upcoming school year, our 11th graders?
So first and foremost, and I know that, like I said, we're all here for our students. It's essential to reach out to your teachers, counselors, administrators, to assure that, number one, if you have any questions about your credits, that you are, and as well as just to touch base about your credits, right? Like, that's essential. Also to talk about what, we still have ACT, we still have the, we don't have the actual mandated test that is being taken right now, but that they will have to take that, to talk about what kind of online resources are available. I know, for example, with the 8th graders that are going to be upcoming 9th graders, we are having conversations to assure that they have selected their high schools. And if they're having concerns about selecting the high schools, we're reaching out to make sure that they have all the information to select the correct high school. So when we're talking about our 11th graders, that we still are having conversations about what college they're looking into, because we're still working together to assure that we are making sure that all of our students are prepared to move forward. So I would say that although we're not physically in contact with one another, but utilizing these online platforms to create that connection where we are providing the correct information. So I would say creating that environment of inquiring, right? Like, so if you have questions, I would say to create a list of questions, to be ready to speak to our counselors as we're going through this time, to make sure that we have all of our credits, that if they have any updated information about what's going on with ACT, what's going on with state mandated tests, that we have a current, emails, current phone numbers, so that way we're able to create that two-way communication.
Hey, that's excellent. You made a lot of good points, especially being, once again, reinforcing communication.
Yes.
Because once again, you guys are there to assist, you guys are there to help and ensure their success, because we live in a crazy time right now.
Right. And what you'll find, and I know that we're doing this in my school district, we have like office hours, right? And when parents are having questions, if we don't have the answers, if you put it on that platform, like let's say, for example, Teams, Microsoft Teams, we can come back when we have the answers to post those answers.
And that's great. That's really good, because then maybe another parent might have had the same question as well, and they weren't, comfortable asking. So at least they can see it and get some type of feedback, you know? All right. Well, Dr. Williams, once again, thank you so much for coming on. We're about to run out of time here. So just kind of one last question. What advice can you offer our listeners today, whether it's, the 11th grader who's, about to transition to their last year of high school, or even a parent with younger kids who are trying to make sure that their kids are successful during the rest of the school year?
Portia, I wanted to say thank you before we end. And I would say that assuring that the lines of communication are open. So creating a communication network for yourself. I would also say that creating that schedule for your children, working collaboratively to create a schedule. And then I would also say reaching out to see what resources are available, because there are so many different resources. I know right now, for example, we have many students that do not have technology, but we're working very hard to assure that all students have technology. And from there, tapping into those different resources that I spoke of earlier, because students do not have to be bored. There are so many different things that they could do that are fun yet teaching.